Greetings, everyone. This is Marcel Williams on this fine Tuesday, the 20th of December 2022, from Cape Town, South Africa. The increase of wickedness, we all can identify with that term. With all the crime that's taking place, we see on the roads even that it's everybody's doing their own thing with no regard for rules. Quite a lot of people are breaking the law willy-nilly. And I want to just talk about that issue of the increase of lawlessness. It's mentioned in the Bible. But just a side story before I get into it. Yesterday, I answered my cell early in the morning with irritation because the number looked like a spam number, that kind of marketing thing they do over the phone. And I was ready to, cut the person off as soon as possible. The usual greeting is, "How are you?" without declaring who they are. And I usually would say, "Who's speaking?" But in this case, it turned out to be a call from DSTV asking, am I satisfied with the service? I obviously said some platitudes because I was still euphoric from the World Cup in Qatar, that experience. But then I took the opportunity to speak to somebody real about our dissatisfaction towards the bouquet. I've got the full bouquet, but the content is inferior by now. And, the constant old movies and repeats, the irrelevant documentaries, quite a bit of dissatisfaction I've discovered, and I'm not the only one. In fact, there's several people who have took themselves off because of the frustration they have with the content that they offer. So I said before I actually stop my subscription, I just need to express my view. And if it was not for the sport, I would have actually stopped because it's a lot of money that you're paying for nonsense. The lady promised that she's going to do something about it, inform the relevant department, etc., of my frustration. But after the call, I reflected about this. And I realized, the content, the movies are mostly empty-headed nonsense. There's a lot of gratuitous violence in their movies, a glorification of violence, and murder. The Skopskiet and Dorner type of entertainment. There was very little of real art. The movies that leave you with reflection, that do something to your humanity, that adds to your human experience. And what comes to mind is so many movies that I did enjoy and people enjoy, that are fit that description. Like, for instance, Shawshank Redemption, for instance. If you've seen that movie, it leaves you thinking, it leaves you reflecting about human nature and human struggles and how victory is achieved. But you'll realize that there's a diabolical attempt or plan to divert people from the real values in life. Most of the programming is to program people to accept the wrong, to accept the bad, to make it normal, to make it acceptable. And what comes to mind is the amount of violence that you see that's unnecessary: murder, crime, chaos, problems, dishonesty, betrayal, treachery. And the number of movies that have the theme of bank robberies. In fact, in reality, there's not so many bank robberies as you find in the movies. And then there's that glorification of depravity. Um, and the Bible says in Matthew 24, verse 12, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. And we've been so programmed to accept violence and crime and wickedness on TV that we've become cold, we've become acceptable to it. What comes to mind also is part of this programming deals with, for instance, the depravity, horror movies. I no longer watch horror movies for several years now because I see it as education into wickedness, witchcraft. So entertainment brings, in the form of seances, makes portals for wickedness to enter into our homes through the television. Um, Portals for demonic influence or demonic possession. The spirit behind these themes enter in through the TV and into our homes. Then another point I want to point out that the theme of science fiction movies. Yes, it's very entertaining, but how much of it is true and how much of it actually relates to reality? There seems to be an attempt to prepare people for something in the future that may be a big lie. Let me say from the outset, I don't believe in UFOs. But just to point out a few of the movies that have been preparing people to accept the science fiction narrative. Way back, we had Star Trek, then we had Star Wars, we had the Alien trilogy, Alien 1, Alien 2, Alien 3, about the battle in space with an alien. Um, Prometheus, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and I Am Legend, and the list goes on. Now, I would say there seems to be a programming to prepare people to accept something as normal. I don't know if you've noticed through social media and such that there's been an increase in the story of UFOs, unidentified flying objects around the world. People are taking video or making sightings um, of it, and I would say that it's actually quite a bit of a deception. Um, we know that in photos you can Photoshop, you can edit to make something look like what it is not. The same thing with in filming and documentaries. You can actually present a picture, an argument that is basically not reality, but it's made to look like reality. So I just wanted to share these thoughts with you, that we need to be careful. Matthew 24, the beginning, when Jesus answered the question to the disciples, his first point was, make sure that no man deceives you. In this time that we're living in now, deception is on a very, very huge level now. In every instance, there's deception. We have to be discerning to perceive what is true and what is false. And of course, just to leave you with this point here, the increase, because of the increase of lawlessness, that violence and so on, that I just explained, the love of most will grow cold. And isn't it true that we become so used to it, we can walk by when there's a murder, we're not so disturbed as we were in previous years about something that is so terrible, so depraved, deplorable, and we accept it as normal, and we accept it and we move on. So with that, I'll close and wish you a wonderful day further.